exercises, but routines in our class. You see, in the first grade, we got a brand new principal, and her name was Miss Hall. Now, if you remember Lean on Me, and you remember Joe Clark, imagine the female version of Joe Clark in our elementary school. She played no games. She was a disciplinarian, but she got things done. And so Miss Burns wanted to instill in us principles and practices and things that would go throughout our entire life. So she started when we were young. So our school mascot was the Eagles. And so every single day we got up and we sang. We looked at the PA and we said, I believe I can fly. Every single day, R. Kelly would blare through our entire school. I used to think that I could not go home. And we would sing it every single day because she wanted us to believe that we could soar. Every single day we said the Lewis School motto. I don't remember it all, but I do remember this. I am able, willing, and ready to succeed. That's about it. I know there's more to it than that, but we had to say it every single day. She wanted us to believe as eagles that we could soar. And one of the other things that she had us do every single day was recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So we would stand up, we would look at that flag, put our hand over our heart, and say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We said it every single day. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance every single day was meant to train us and instill in us at a young age the concepts of loyalty and trust. Because then once we got older, we would appreciate and serve our country with gratitude. Mrs. Burns and Birmingham City School System knew the power of someone's allegiance. When you give something your allegiance, you are not only willing to live for what you believe, but also die for what you believe. And so we pledge our allegiance to the flag. And when you pledge your allegiance to something, your allegiance is always to something greater than yourself. Always to something bigger than yourself. When you pledge your allegiance, you are giving your allegiance, or maybe not always, but in general, it's going to be something greater than you. It's going to be something bigger than you. You're going to align your loyalty, your trust, your thoughts. Everything will be given to the object of your allegiance. And everyone and everything is vying for your allegiance. Companies are vying for your allegiance. Countries are vying for your allegiance. Organizations are vying for your allegiance. Sororities and fraternities, sports teams, electronic brands are all vying for your allegiance. Why? Because when someone or something has your allegiance, they have you. Your allegiance carries your word, it carries your money, it carries your priorities, your thoughts, your convictions, it even carries your family. So the question is, who gets your allegiance?
That's good, Nate.
Amen.
Our sermon series title is entitled, Follow Me, where we are learning how to be disciples of Jesus Christ. Matthew 7, verse 24 says, Therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on a rock. And Luke 9, chapter 9, verse 23 says, Then he said to them all, Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. We are learning how to be disciples of Jesus. And the only way you can be a disciple of Jesus Christ is to follow him. Being a disciple requires our total allegiance to Jesus. And true allegiance to Jesus requires total surrender to Jesus. You can't just live a half-hearted surrender life to Jesus. You can't be like me, who I've got an Apple laptop, but I use an Android phone. I'm going back and forth between two different allegiances. Heresy. I gotta be all Apple or all Android, if I want to be truly aligned to one. I can't go back and forth. Jesus wants all of your allegiance. Because if you don't give him all of your allegiance, it might even be said that you have none of his allegiance. But you have more entities than Jesus that are trying to get your allegiance. And you have more entities than Jesus that you can give your allegiance to. And throughout your life, you will give your allegiance to someone or something. You're going to give your allegiance to your political party, whether it be independent, Republican, Democratic. You're going to give your allegiance to some sports team. Can I get a roll tide? Roll tide. Wow! 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 See, all right, I was standing here by myself. What my LSU fans at? Any LSU fans? Can't even crack on them. They lost 628 yards. Feel sorry for. Well, I'm aligned to Alabama. If none of y'all are, my wife, thank you. See, look, she got my back. We align each other. Wow, I was expecting at least one loud roll tide. Companies want your allegiance. Whatever company you work for wants your allegiance. They don't want you telling their secrets and what they do. If you hire somebody, you won't want them telling everything and everyone and everything about your company. Different causes want your allegiance, whether it be the March of Dimes, the Red Cross, whether it be Black Lives Matter, whether it be whatever you have in mind. Different causes want your allegiance. And whatever you give your allegiance to, it will impact your future, your family, your current situation, and possibly even your eternity. Some allegiances are shallow, like this Apple and Android allegiance, or my Alabama versus Auburn allegiance. I mean, I like Alabama, but I'm not about to die for them. I mean, it ain't that deep. But other allegiances are really deep, and they literally affect every part of our lives. Your political party, for some people, is deep. Some people's allegiance to their country is deep. Some people's allegiance to their worldview or their cause is deep. Whether it be Christianity, whether it be atheism, whether it be any of these different ideologies and these thoughts that are out there. There are some allegiances that carry weight. But even deeper than something having your allegiance, you will give your allegiance to someone. And every decision you make will have that person at the forefront of your mind. Your allegiance is one of your most precious gifts. It is one of the most precious gifts you possess. So you have to make sure you only give it to a worthy party. And you will give your allegiance either to yourself, to rebel spiritual forces, or to God. And that's why I entitled this message today, I pledge allegiance to the Lamb. I pledge allegiance to the Lamb. You have to and you will give your allegiance to someone. So the question is, who gets your allegiance? Now, many people have given their allegiance to themselves. They are the primary focus of all of their choices, all of their thoughts, all of their ambitions revolve around them. They are the captain of their ship, and they are the one who tells the ship where to go. They are the one who their choices rest on, and they have themselves at the forefront of their mind. When they make choices, they are not thinking necessarily of how this choice will benefit others. They first start with, how will this choice benefit, add to, give me value, help me get to where I need to get to, help me go where I want to go. When you give yourself your allegiance, when you are the object of your allegiance, when you have self-allegiance, you will end up exalting yourself to the place of divinity. Because somebody's God is just the one thing that you obey. When God is your God, when He tells you to do something, when you are your God, whenever you tell yourself that you're going to do something, guess what? You go out and you do it. Self-allegiance always results in self-exaltation. Self-exaltation. Peter told once said, I knew that I was a God when I was praying, and the only voice that I heard was my own. That kind of thinking results in self-exaltation. He literally said, I knew I was a God. I knew that I was the object of my destiny. I get to tell myself where to go. And there are many people who think that way, that they themselves are the captain of their ship. And everyone around you, when you exalt yourself, will be used by you for purposes that seem best to you. If it doesn't seem good to you, then that person really doesn't matter. Then that thing really doesn't matter. Then that idea really doesn't matter. Then those other things really don't matter. You can take somebody like Pharaoh in Egypt. He wanted to exalt himself. And so when he saw the Israelites as a threat to his self-exaltation, he said, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to take each and every male in the Israelites who was born in my reign, and they will be thrown to the crocodiles. I will kill them. Why? Because they are interrupting my self-exaltation. They are interrupting my self-exaltation. Or you can take Saul. In 1 Samuel chapter 15, God gave Saul a specific command. I need you to utterly destroy the Amalekites because they were disobedient and their time for judgment has arrived. And so Saul needed to go. God said, I want you to kill every person. I want you to destroy all the livestock. Leave nothing, give nothing back. Everything should be destroyed. But Saul, because he himself was the object of his allegiance, he did not fully follow God. He did not kill everything. He did not destroy all the sheep. Instead, he said, you know what? I'll take the king as my prisoner of war and as my new trophy. I'll take these sheep and I'll use them for my own glory. Even though he never said those words, you can see throughout the story that's what his heart exuded. And so when the prophet Samuel comes and he checks him on this, he said, what wicked thing have you done in Israel on today? Saul came to him and said, I only did this because the people made me do this. I only did this because I wanted to sacrifice these to God. He blamed everybody for his own self-allegiance. And his own self-allegiance ended up in his destruction. Samuel said, it is better to obey than to sacrifice. When you are trying to follow God, sacrifices amount to nothing in comparison to obedience. And Saul, by him keeping the sheep, by him keeping the king alive, he showed everybody, including himself, where his allegiance truly was. It was with himself and himself alone. Everyone whose allegiance is to themselves will eventually find out that there are realities outside of them that are far greater than them. Saul found out the hard way that his self-allegiance ended up in his own demotion. He was once the king of Israel, but because of his self-allegiance, he had his kingdom ripped from him. And there are other people out there today, nowadays, modern times, who put their allegiance in money and fame and status and fortune and position and power and all of these other different areas. And one day you will find out that there are realities outside of yourself that you have no power over. One day you will see that death does not care. And it will swallow up every single person. All of your money, all of your power, all of your possessions will one day amount to nothing when you align yourself to yourself. Like Eve in the garden, a life of self-allegiance will always give you temporary pleasure in exchange for physical, relational, emotional, and spiritual death. Like Eve in the garden, when you align yourself to yourself, you will get a temporary pleasure. You will have money. You can make it rain. You can do a whole lot of good stuff. But it's only temporary, and it will result in death. So you may recognize one day the futility of making yourself the object of your allegiance. And so you start to look to something outside of yourself to give yourself your allegiance to. So you go out and about looking. I keep crashing my ship. So I need something outside of me to help stir this ship in the right direction. And as you go outside yourself, you start to look and you start to wonder and you start to find something. But there is an entire realm of ungodly, evil, rebel spirits who covet your allegiance and desire that you pledge your allegiance to them. They want to advance their kingdom in this earth. They want to advance what they want in this earth. There is a whole host of spirits who want your allegiance and are fighting for it every single day. You may not realize this, but there is a twin rebellion going on right now, and it's been going on since the very first pages of the Bible. When we get to Genesis chapter 1, we see that God created the heavens and the earth and that it was good. And God is doing all kinds of creating. He's creating this and He's creating that. He's creating this and He's doing all kinds of wonderful, good things. And then we see in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, it says, "Then God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons, for the days and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made the two great lights. The greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made stars also. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth and to govern the day and the night and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There was evening, there was morning, a fourth day. When you read the Bible, every time you see the word heaven or you see the word stars, those words carry two meanings. When you see the word heaven, heaven refers not only to the space or the sky above. Heaven also refers to the spiritual realm where these spirits live, where spiritual beings live. So you can think of God, you can think of angels, you can think of all these different things. So on the fourth day, we see that God has this space above earth where He is creating spiritual beings. How do we know that? Because stars in the Bible is also a word that's synonymous. It means two different things. It can not only mean the balls of gas and fire and light in the sky, but stars also refer to spiritual beings that God has created throughout the earth. So when God says in this passage that He has the heavens and He has the stars, He is letting us know that He has created a space where spiritual beings can live. Spiritual beings can create. Not just the physical space that we see that holds the stars, the moon, and the planets, but even the heavenly hosts. The angels, the cherubs, and all these other spiritual beings. God creates them in Genesis chapter 1. And it is good in His eyes. But in chapter 3 of Genesis, we see that there is a rebellion going on. And one of these spiritual creatures, it's hard to tell if the rebellion starts in chapter 3 or if it already occurred. But when we look in chapter 3, we see a spiritual creature called the snake come up and deceive Adam and Eve. And there is a twin rebellion that happens right there in chapter 3. Whether it was the first time that the snake rebelled or time, we're not quite sure. But we know for sure that the snake was cursed and that mankind was cursed. But it doesn't stop there. When we get to Genesis chapter 6, we see that there is another rebellion that happens. Genesis chapter 6 verse 1, chapter 3 says, "Now when it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. And they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall become 120 years." Here we see that these spiritual beings have rebelled. And we see this because we see the phrase, the sons of God saw themselves. Whenever we see the phrase sons of God, again, that's another phrase for spiritual beings. That's another phrase for angels and all these other kinds of spiritual beings. So remember, when you go to Job chapter 1, and it says that the sons of God presented themselves before God, and the accuser came among them. Every time you see the phrase sons of God, that is referring to spiritual beings. So when we get to chapter 6, we see that these sons of God saw daughters that were of men, and they were beautiful. And they took wives for themselves, and they chose whomever they wanted. This is a rebellion narrative. This is a moment in time where these spiritual beings rebelled. They were not supposed to interact and intermingle with humanity in this way. This was vile and wretched to God. The same way that Eve saw the fruit on the tree and that it was good, these spiritual rebels, spiritual forces saw that the daughters of man were good, and they took of them and did whatever they wanted to. A twin rebellion is going on right now in this story, and is still continuing to this day. Now these sons of God are no longer considered sons of light, sons in the most high realm. Now they are rebels, spiritual forces who have been doomed to destruction and doomed to darkness. Now they are roaming about the earth, since they no longer can serve the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and the Most High God. They choose themselves to be lesser, lower gods, seeking to go about the land and create a kingdom of darkness. They choose to be gods with a little g because they can no longer serve the God of the big G. And so these rebel spiritual forces, also called demons, also called devils, go about the land in unseen ways, seeking to expand and enlarge their kingdom. They're seeking to grow their kingdom. But like every kingdom needs servants. Every kingdom needs someone to advance the cause. And so these rebel spiritual forces, these lowercase g gods are going about, and they have to figure out, how can I advance and enlarge and grow my kingdom up? I know how. I will use humans to advance the kingdom of darkness. And so they entice us. But how do demonic entities entice people? They do it with promises. They entice us with promises. They promise us this. They promise us that. They promise us good health. They promise us wealth. They promise us prosperity. They give us promises. Only the catch is this. The only catch is this. All demonic promises require payment. And all demonic partnerships end in death. Every demonic partnership requires payment, and every demonic partnership ends in death. Now these little gods present themselves to people as the God to be worshipped because they have to advance their kingdom. And throughout the Bible, God is interacting and dealing with these demonic spirits, these rebel spirits who are trying to advance their kingdom of darkness. So take the god Molech, for example, in the Bible. Molech promised people, if you come to me, I will give your family prosperity in your family line. Your lineage will be blessed. You will have children. Everything will be great. All that you want and desire as far from a children's standpoint, from a legacy standpoint, will be yours. But I need your firstborn child. And so people looking to have their dreams and their desires and their goals and aspirations met, they would come to Molech saying, I want to be blessed. I want my legacy to be enlarged. And they would come and they would bring Molech their firstborn child. And Molech would be represented as a god who is iron and steel. And they would use him and they would heat him up and put Molech on fire so that the iron would be hot. And the people who worship Molech would beat the drum and beat the drum and beat the drum and beat the drum as somebody put their child on this hot metal burning god. And as the baby screamed in agony, they would beat the drum louder and louder and louder to drown out the screams of this crying baby until the baby screamed no more. it cost them their firstborn child. Molech promised them prosperity, but it cost them their firstborn child. And don't think that you are so modern that Molech is not still whispering in your ears right now. That he's not still whispering in our ears right now, trying to entice us. Every single time somebody gets an abortion, we are worshiping and serving Molech. We are saying that, you know what, I can't handle a baby right now. I'm not able to handle a baby right now. I need my finances in order right now. I need my future to be secure. And so we go to the altar of Molech and we get this abortion. And we do Molech's will on earth as it is in hell. We go to Molech. We go to these gods for our own exaltation. And it ends up in death. Or take the goddess Asherah, for example. Asherah was a goddess in the Bible who promised relational prosperity. She would come and if you gave your allegiance to her, she promised relational prosperity. And her symbol of choice wasn't a metal statue. Asherah came in a pole. And so people would have a pole and they would perform all kinds of ritual prostitution before her. They would do all kinds of ritual sexual immorality right at the pole. And the hope was that if I give my allegiance to Asherah, then maybe my finances will be okay. Maybe somebody will take care of me. Maybe sexually, maybe relationally, I will be okay. Maybe all these other things in my life will add up if I give my allegiance to Asherah. And so the Israelites and the Canaanites gave their allegiance to Asherah over and over again, hoping that their relationships would just be made right, hoping that their money would just be made right. And it ended up in destruction every single time. Relationships never got better. They always got worse. A moment of ecstasy for a lifetime of misery, pain, and abandonment. And don't think that you are so modern that Asherah is not still whispering in my ear and your ears today. Asherah is still alive and proud. Why do you think that strip clubs have a pole in them? Why do you think strip clubs have a pole in them? Because every time that we go to a strip club, every time that we patron these clubs, every time that somebody goes to the strip club, they are burning sweet incense to Asherah. Hoping that their relationships will be okay. Hoping that their money will be okay. Hoping that things will be okay in their lives. We go to Asherah. We pledge our allegiance to her. Pole after pole, club after club, all of them are giving their allegiance to Asherah, the goddess of fertility and sexual and relational prosperity. What about the god Baal? Baal was the storm and the god of the harvest. And Baal would promise people that if you come to me, I will give you harvest upon harvest, bounty and plenty. If you come to me, I will have these seasons aligned in a way that will honor you. If you come to me, I will set your life up for financial prosperity. But Baal was a little bit deeper than that. Because the Israelites went after Baal over and over and over again. Why do you think the Israelites went after Baal over and over and over again? What made Baal so enticing that the Israelites would trip up on him over and over and over again? Well, according to Canaanite mythology, Baal had an issue. And he had an issue with the god called El. El was his father. And so Baal, having an issue with his father, Baal thought that his father was weak and worthless and he would not get the job done. So Baal said, you know what? I am taking the reins of this ship over. And Baal goes up, mounts himself up, exalts himself up, and kills the one main god. He kills El. And in an act of total defiance, and in an act of, I can do whatever, wife, Asherah. To show the whole universe that I can do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it. The story of Baal is the story of every Israelite. The story of Baal is the story of every one of us. We have all looked at God and said, you know what, God? I don't think you're getting the job done. You know what, God? I think that my agenda is a little bit better than yours. You know what, God? I think that I could run this ship a little bit better than you. And so we dethrone God and enthrone ourselves. And then we proceed to go about the land doing whatever we want to do because we are the new king in town.
Come on, Dave.
And we fall prey to this.
Thank you, Jesus.
We have a certain way we want our life to go. And these lesser G gods, these lesser spiritual beings are more than willing to help you live the life that you want at a cost. And this brings us back to 1 Kings chapter 16. We see that Ahab, the most wicked king up until his time, has come. And he has given himself allegiance to Asherah and Baal. And the people followed him in his rebellion. And so they really believed that Baal was the God who controlled the rain and the seasons and the storm. And in their belief, God cast judgment on them. And so he sends Elijah and says, Elijah, don't let it rain for 3 years. I'm going to show every single person who the real God of the rain and the harvest is. And so for 3 years, there is no rain in the land because God is trying to get the hard-hearted, stiff-necked people of Israel to believe that there is only one God of the harvest, one God of the storm. But they don't quite see it. So year after year goes by. They're not sure, is Baal going to come through? What should I believe? What should I do? And they go back and forth and back and forth. And so we get to the place where God finally says it's going to rain. And he sends Elijah to the top of Mount Carmel to face all the prophets of Baal, to face all the prophets of Asherah, to face all of Israel. And when he gets to him, verse 17 says that Ahab saw Elijah and said, is that you, troubler of Israel? Have I not? And Elijah says, I have not made trouble for Israel. He says, you and your father have. You abandoned the Lord's command and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent the word throughout all of Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. And Elijah went before them and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? And I come to you today and say, how long will you limp between two opinions? All I want you to do today is make a choice. How long will you go between three opinions? If you are the object of your allegiance, go with yourself. But it always ends, when you align yourself, it always ends in temporary pleasure, but eternal death. If these demons are God, and you want to follow them, if you follow them, know that there is a catch. These demonic principles, these demonic principalities, always want a payment from you. And that payment always ends in death. And so Elijah goes before the people and he says, if Baal be God, then follow him. But if the Lord be God, then follow him. See, the thing about Jesus, when you pledge your allegiance to Jesus, guess what? There is a cost to following Jesus as well. But the only difference between Jesus and these lesser spiritual beings require a cost, and it will cost you your life. Jesus requires a cost. It requires your life. But he gives you life in exchange for it. He gives you life in exchange for your life. Luke 9:23 says, then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross, their executioner rack daily, and follow me. And go after me. Don't be like the people of Israel when they were going against Baal and they were going against Jesus and they said nothing. They just looked at what was happening. Choose. If you choose Jesus, it will cost you your life. Your executioner rack is on your back every single day. But Jesus says that if you give me your life, don't worry, I have given you my life in return. I have given you my life in return. That's why Jesus came in the first place. All of us were bent over to an eternity without God, bent over to an eternity of separation. But Jesus came, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Disciples of Jesus Christ, people who put their trust and their hope and every ounce of their being in the life of Jesus Christ, have the ability to truly live. Have the ability to truly live. Not just in this life, but for eternity. But it costs you something. It costs you your life. So I don't ask you to come without counting the cost. I don't ask you to come before Jesus and not count the cost. I know that when you pledge your allegiance to the Lamb, it will cost you your agenda. It will cost you your dreams. It will cost you your goals. It will cost you a lot. But the life of Jesus is worth it. I'm here to tell you today that the life of Jesus is worth it. When you exchange your life for the life of Jesus, eternity is secure. Relationships are better. Things may look bad during this life because of persecution and trials, but all of it through the lens of joy and through the lens of everlasting peace with God makes it worth it.
Amen.
It costs something to pledge your allegiance to Jesus, the Lamb who was slain for our sin, the one who died on behalf of your rebellion, your idolatry, your brokenness, your selfishness, your evil. It cost him his life. That's why he is the Lamb who was slain for you and I. So don't take pledging allegiance to the Lamb lightly. But I am here today to get you to make a decision. How long will you limp between three choices? How long will you limp between three choices? Limping between choices got Israel in the place they were in. It got them in the place of a drought, a 3-year drought, because they would limp between two different choices. Ahab would serve one God one day and then serve Asherah the next day. Ahab would serve God one day and then he would serve Baal the next day. Limping back and forth ends in destruction. And I would even say that limping back and forth basically means you haven't made a choice at all. And the only choice in Jesus is the decision to follow him. So I encourage you to count the cost of every single choice. Following yourself, following demonic rebel spirits, or following Jesus. Choose to be a disciple. And if you're not sure where you want to go, then pray like nobody's business until you find where you need to go. If you're not sure what you need to do, then pray and read and fast like nobody's business till you get to the point where you know what decision you have made. So again, I give you shit. Who gets your allegiance? I want to end with 3 practical steps for those who want to choose to align themselves to the Lord. The first step is I want you to renounce idols. How do you renounce idols? Well, the one thing you do is look at the things that you like and love to do. If any of the things that you like or love to do carry more of your obedience than Jesus carries, then you may have an idol. You have an idol in those areas. Your idols will be found in the things that you like to do more than spending time or living for Jesus. So how do you renounce idols? Look at what you like and enjoy doing, what you love doing, and evaluate it. Is this an idol in my life? Number two, how do you renounce idols? Not only do you look at what you like to do, but look at your secrets as well. Because you give your allegiance to your secrets. You won't tell anybody. You won't show anybody. Nobody will know about this. Your idols will be found in the areas where you keep secret. So look at your secrets. Look at the things that you said, I'm never going to tell anybody. Nobody will ever find out. There's a great chance that there's an idol. There's an obedience to that secret that's greater than your obedience to Jesus. And number three, after you've renounced these two areas, remember, how do you pledge your allegiance to Jesus? It's as simple as denying yourself. Luke 9:23. Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. You pledge your allegiance to Jesus by denying yourself, your agenda, taking up your cross, not just your execution, but also your purpose. Your cross is your purpose. Take up your purpose. Don't be afraid of it. Jesus will help you. And follow him. He's already led the way because you're following him. He's already leading the way because you're following him. So three areas, three ways that you can take this. How do I pledge my allegiance to the Lamb? Look at your idols. And then choose to follow Luke 9:23. Everyone stand. Well, you don't have to stand. It's okay. You don't have to stand. I don't have a lot today other than that message. I just want to encourage you. And I just want us to pray. So just right where you're sitting, you examine your own heart and see where my decisions lay. Where is my allegiance? Is it with myself? Have I given my allegiance to some demonic entity, to some witchcraft, to some idolatry? Or is it with Jesus? And if it's with Jesus, am I truly denying myself and following him? So where you are, just take a moment to pray.